everybody. We're really delighted to have a great group of friends and other people interested in refuges and friends groups on board today. We have a very special speaker, someone who I'm sure we'll all find out a lot of interesting information from. Please, as Tom said a few minutes ago, would you please put your name, the friends group that you're affiliated with, and why that group is important to your community, if you would like to put that in as well, into the chat box so that we know who all is here. And with that, I will turn it over to Tom to do the introduction.
Great. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Welcome everyone to our webinar today. I'm Tom Worthington. I'm the president of the Minnesota Valley Refuge Friends group here in Minneapolis. And one of my volunteer gigs is to help organize these monthly webinars for refuges and hatchery friends groups. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. We're very fortunate today to have with us Josh Coursey, the senior advisor to the director of the Fish and Wildlife Service. Josh is a native of Wyoming, joined the Fish and Wildlife Service following 13 years as founder and president of the Muley Fanatic Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the conservation of mule deer and their habitats. Under his leadership, the Muley Foundation evolved from a grounds root initiative into a nationally recognized conservation force with active chapters in 7 states and members in all 50 states. In partnership with the University of Wyoming, the Muley Fanatic Foundation sponsors graduate students to study mule deer biology. With his guidance, the Muley Foundation has generated more than $12 million for conservation easements, wildlife crossings, large-scale habitat restoration projects, and the organization's Putting the U in the Hunt program provides meaningful hunting experiences for youth facing terminal or life-threatening illnesses. Clearly, Josh understands the important role of citizen-led conservation organizations. He knows that individual citizens, hunting and fishing groups with a shared vision for wildlife conservation have for over 100 years taken the lead in conserving their corners of our wild landscapes and helped establish refuges across the country so that hunters and anglers and bird watchers and photographers and people of all ages have permanent access to these lands and waters for generations to come. Wildlife refuges and national fish hatcheries are loved by their communities and the people on the call here with us today. Fish and Wildlife Service Director Brian Nesvik has appointed Josh to lead a comprehensive review of the National Wildlife Refuge System. As a part of this review, Josh is asking partner organizations like friends groups for input and suggestions. We're so very grateful he has carved out time out of his hectic schedule to speak with us today about this review, to listen and to learn. After Josh provides some of his thoughts on this review, he's open to taking questions and hearing from you. We have a very large number of people on the call today, so please type up your questions and put them in the chat box. We'll monitor that chat box and we will relay the questions to Josh. Josh, thank you again and welcome to our group.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for everybody who has made time out of their day to be able to talk about refuges. It's certainly something that I know you all hold with great passion. Tom, I think, and I appreciate the kind introduction. Certainly, it's always a little uncomfortable when somebody's talking about you. I'm not a feather in the cap type of guy, so to hear you say some of the things, really the thing I want to cling to is what you said, citizen-led conservation. I've always recognized in my previous role, before this role, the importance of citizen science, folks that live on the landscape, that understand the landscape. They know it better than anyone. And I would extend that I have a strong feeling that many of you, especially with your connection to each individual refuge, that you were part of a friends group associated to such, that you have certain ideas, thoughts, things to be celebrated, things to be considered, and I very much look forward to that. I want to start with talking about the director's order and some of the motivation behind the order. I think there's been some misnomers that have been talked about with the release of that in December because of the timing of it. And I just want to assure you that we are more interested in getting this review done right than we are done fast. And There's a couple of benchmark dates that were included in that director's order, January 5th being the first one, and another one of February 15th. I've heard several people mention those dates to me. And as I'm sure some of you have also had concern or that raised some concern with you, the more important date is what closes within that director's order, and that is the 18-month mark. By no means do I think we are looking to drag something out 18 months, but again, I do not have a time frame of when I think we'll be complete or ready to move a draft of the final report on this. But those two benchmarks, January 5th and February 15th, are dates that have been carved out for me to let the director know where we're at, what the status of the report is, and what's still to come. There have been some things that have been implemented already. One is an internal survey of all of our refuge staff. So that went out last week. We've had tremendous feedback that has already come from that. We have an external survey that will hopefully go out tomorrow. I am new to the federal government. Many of you, maybe some of you, have retired from the government or have had working interactions with the government, but an external survey and an internal survey are two very different beasts with the federal government. And the external survey, very rigid, very strict sideboards of what can be asked, no edits to the wording of any of the questions that are presented as options, only two open-ended questions allowed. And I'm grateful that there are two open-ended questions allowed, because that's where I really think we can get to some of the nuts and bolts of what people are thinking and want to be able to offer up as ideas or challenges or solutions or anything under the sun for that matter. And so that will be going out. And then tribal consultation. That's a whole nother process. And we are working through those steps now, working with our Native American program, also working with some folks that have a direct tie in how to be able to best orchestrate and facilitate that. So there are many things to come that certainly are not going to be anything that will allow us to think that this is going to be done in a very short order. It is a huge task. It is a huge undertaking with many moving parts. As you know, a system of 573 refuges just on the landscape, not to mention our marine monuments. It is an enormous task ahead of us. What we are really trying to do and what the desire of this director's order is intended on being able to discover is where are there efficiencies to be gained? What can we do better? I think we all recognize the current state of where we are at with shortage of capacity, shortage of funding, and there's just not a lot of meat left on the bone, to be quite frank. Maybe this provides us an opportunity to look at doing things a little differently. I will tell you, and I've heard it before, here in just the last couple of weeks, there is no intent on this effort to be used to look at trying to sell off or remove some of our refuges. We know how important our refuges are. We know how important the refuge system is, especially when you look at it from the optics of continental conservation and how they play off of each other, support each other, benefit each other, and depend upon each other. So if you've heard some of those rumors, I've seen some of the headlines. I work for the federal government. I have a boss. I'm not permitted to talk to the media. I haven't been able to dispel some of that. I am just telling you in this webinar, that is not the intent of this. And so if you've had those concerns, I hope I can put some of that to rest so you know that is not the intent of what this order is. Again, if we can find a better way to serve the American public by improving challenges, inefficiencies, and things that we have within our individual refuges, looking at each one individually and having them be anchored to what their original purpose was, is the goal of this. We have an enormous deferred maintenance backlog. We have a shortages of staff that carry our mission forward. And we really need to look at how we could maybe do things a little differently. If that is involving shared resources among regions, being able to have concepts that maybe aren't even in play right now, but allow for some core centers of shared resources and assets. This is about being able to deliver a better product to the American public. So I think I've indicated quite a bit already, and I'm sure there's a lot that maybe we want to unpack. It was not my intent to have a lot of information that I would just be able to share with you. I'm more interested in hearing from you. That feedback is, again, as Tom alluded to, with the citizen-led conservation or citizen science, that is of extreme value to me. I have asked Tom and Cheryl and Joan to be able to put within the chat box my email address. I would, if you have questions that we're not able to get to today, I would certainly welcome you to email me directly. The only, and I'd be happy if you want my phone number, I'd be happy to put that out there. But recognizing the various time changes, I'm in the Eastern time zone. What I'm doing with direct emails that I'm getting now is once I receive that from you, I will reach back out to try to find a time that we can visit. And when I say visit, I would prefer to visit with you in a setting like this virtually. If you'd prefer a phone call, I'd be happy to accommodate that. If you would just prefer to email back and forth, whatever is going to be to your satisfaction. Again, I work for you. I took this job because I wanted to serve the American public. I believe in our refuge system. I believe it's a national treasure, and I'm trying to find ways that can help us move forward to a 21st century model of conservation that we have been operating that maybe from a model that was designed in the early 20th century. And recognizing we have some innovation, we have great people. It's our greatest resource, quite frankly, is the people we have. Our people are unmatched. And so I look forward to visiting with you and having you be involved and helping along this road as we go down this trail together.
Well, Josh, the questions are starting to roll in already, so I'll just start right off by reading the first one. Will all friends groups with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service partnership agreements receive this external survey?
Yes.
That was easy. The next one is,
and again on that, Cheryl, I'm hopeful that that will go out tomorrow, but that very well may not go out until Monday. So we're meeting with AFWA tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern time. They also want to be helping and facilitating getting this message and this external survey out to some of the groups that we have MOUs with. And so as a courtesy to them, we had already indicated we would not do any release of the survey until we had the visit with them to make sure that the cadence was understood for us to be together in how we were going to be pushing this out. So there is a chance it could go on Monday, but there is also an opportunity it might go out tomorrow afternoon.
okay, thank you. Another question, given the budget reductions over the last 15 years, will the effort also look at reasonable increases?
Yeah, that's, reasonable increases of budget is not something that the Fish and Wildlife Service certainly has much history of being able to celebrate or applaud for that matter. I think what we are looking for in increases is being able to identify where our deficiencies are with what we do and how we deliver the mission of the refuge system. And is there opportunities for some restructuring of putting the right resources to where the resources are needed most? So as far as a budget efficiency, we're always going to need more money.
I think that's true of any government entity, isn't it?
Yes.
How can the public provide input as part of the external survey or as part of your process?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you for that, whoever's asked that. Thanks, Cheryl. The need for us to be able to push this external survey through our groups that we have MOUs with. Many of them are membership-based groups to include Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, Trout Unlimited, etc. We have asked, and that is why we are meeting with AFWA tomorrow, who represents, as many of you know, all 50 state agencies, to be able to really leverage, much like the friends groups are force multipliers for us at our individual refuges. It is utilizing those partners that can help be a force multiplier in spreading this message to get it out. And there is no limitation on this external survey who can answer it. We're just limited to who we can send it to initially. So we're counting on those partners that have a much more broad width of range and reach than we do to be able to get this in front of as many people as possible.
Thank you. In regard to original mission, how does Fish and Wildlife Service deal with the mission statements that have changed over the years?
Great question. What we're looking for and what will ultimately be what we have an intent on doing is being able to look at what each individual refuge's purpose is and have it be anchored to that. And there is some confusion on purpose and mission. And you're right, there has been some changes to the mission statement, but each individual refuge and their purpose, that will anchor the effort of this report. And that is the by law obligation we have, and we will anchor to that accordingly.
What will be the time frame for providing the input?
So on the external survey, depending on whether it goes out tomorrow or early Monday, we have asked for that to have a window open of 2 weeks. And then I can imagine that we're going to have 4 to 6 weeks of being able to really look through that. We've had some folks that have indicated that there's maybe some potential to have the use of AI or some other tools of technology to help us kind of compile some of those comments that may be duplicative in nature. But I can tell you, I want to read each individual comment. It's very important that I hear from the individual that has passion, that has concern, that has regard, that has ideas, that has complaints. We need to hear it all.
Boy, you're asking for it.
It's
Okay.
what I signed up for. I don't
You're a
know
brave man.
if that's actually accurate. If that's what I
Okay, well, we heard it here, so we know now that we have the ability to send you our honest comments and that you will read them.
Yeah, on that
Next,
note, Cheryl, I can't stress it enough. I would prefer raw, unfiltered, and real. This is it's going to take all of us. This is as I indicated, this is a national treasure. This is a resource that has extreme value. And if you have thoughts on it, good, bad, or indifferent, I need to know.
thank you. Still, one of the questions that a lot of friends groups have been asking recently is how can friends or volunteers supplement understaffed refuges? There are policies and those kinds of things related to what volunteers are allowed to do and what staff members have to do. If you don't have much staff, that really limits volunteers as well. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have several thoughts on that. I think not only how can the friends groups help us? How can we help the friends groups as well? I think recruitment, retention. I think those are growth of friends groups. I would imagine, and my exposure to have direct interaction with a friends group is limited to the Archie Carr Refuge in Florida, and I can tell you the team that I met down there, including utilizing night vision goggles to find sea turtles at 1 o'clock in the morning, was an incredible experience. But running the visitor center, leading the tours, that is truly a force multiplier for us, and we need to be able to utilize that resource. But how do we also help? I have heard from folks that are associated and involved with friends groups that they are, it's probably no different than any nonprofit that I've ever been affiliated with or started. 10% of the group does 90% of the work. And I don't know, maybe that's different for some of the friends groups, but I know that there is an opportunity for us to build capacity for both the service and with friends groups. And one of the ideas, I have visited with Desiree about this with the National Wildlife Refuge Association, is in the future to be able to look to be able to have some sort of function that can bring all of the friends groups here with some sponsorship that can help be able to offset some of those expenses. Because I do believe, and I come from Wyoming, we solve a lot of problems sitting down at the kitchen table, being able to talk and break bread together. But I think if we could get in the same room and we could just visit and understand what our needs are to help each other, I think we could do that. And I think we could do it well. So there are some exciting things that I think are coming in the future associated directly for the friends groups, but they will be geared to help us and to help you mutually and equally.
Thank you. Will the responses to the survey that the Friends group submits be confidential, or will the responses be made available to the public for everyone to see?
Yeah, we are an open book. It will be fully transparent.
Okay, what about refuges that don't have friends groups? Will there be an avenue for comment for them?
If they don't have a friends group, I don't know. I mean, short of people that maybe live in communities nearby, but certainly staff at those individual refuges that maybe don't have the support of a friends group. That went out directly to our staff in our internal survey. But reaching folks that maybe live in a nearby or surrounding community or close proximity to a refuge, I don't know what that would look like for us to be able to tap into something that we might not know how to or who to.
Okay. You say it is not the intent to sell off public lands. Can you assure us that this will not happen in the next 3 years?
Yeah, there is nothing about this director's order, nothing at all. There's not been a conversation one that the director has had for have that to be a component of this. That information, there's nothing about that is accurate. So I can tell you, and all I bring to the table is my word. That's all I have. But I can tell you with all every bit of the word that I have, and that's all I have. There is no intent. I am a huge proponent of our public land system. It belongs to all Americans. I serve my country in the military. I believe that is something that makes us uniquely different than any other country on the planet. There is no intent of that. I can assure you of that.
Okay. Will you be auditing partner agreements and concession contracts? Is there an opportunity to make suggestions and improvements?
I certainly, maybe you could restate the beginning part of that for me, Cheryl. I mean,
Um,
certainly when you said suggestions and improvements, if those are out there, then yes, that's the intent.
um, so I'm not sure if the question is related to organizations that don't have an official friends agreement with a refuge, but support it in some way. And then concession contracts are businesses, of course, that provide services on the refuge. I can think particularly like at Ding Darling, where they have concessionaires who are providing services on their refuge.
Yeah, what I would ask there is maybe a little bit of help from the friends groups that are here and that will be receiving the survey is that they help carry water on this and share it with others. Again, there isn't a limitation on who can receive this survey, but much like we're going to utilize some of the leverage that AFWA has with the states and then asking the states, I would ask all the friends groups if there are others, including concessionaires, if they can help get that message to others, we certainly welcome that.
And this kind of goes along with that. What is the perspective on growing refuges through land acquisition, given the challenges? And then
Yeah,
along with that is so the friends can also solicit input. And I think that's a question. And I just heard you confirm that we can share the questionnaire, the survey with other groups.
absolutely, and certainly those that are familiar with the some of the programs that are in place that are statutory obligations for us with LCWF funds, for example, to be able to look at acquisitions and growth of the refuge system. I don't know of anything that would that's truly an act of Congress. Those aren't going away. If there's ideas, if what I'm hearing in the question is opportunity to be able to weigh in, there's always a lot more requests than there ever is funding available. But if there's an opportunity where there needs to be some opportunity for priorities to be shared or to be heard or to be known that is done differently than what historically may have been, certainly we value and recognize the role that the friends groups have in close partnership with the refuge system. So I'm sure we could figure that out. I mean, we work for you.
Okay. How can we be sure that you have our general friends email address for sending the survey? And I guess I would piggyback on that. To whom will these surveys go? Will they go one to each friends group, or you know, How are you expecting that they will go?
So we have within the refuge system, our team within the refuge system has indicated to me that we have 183 refuge groups. So whatever is on file in that establishment of each of those individual refuge groups, and again, the number I was told was they have contact and within the data set of 183 refuges, that is who they will go to. And I would maybe add to that, and given the opportunity with being able to visit with you today, is if you don't receive it, because I have seen, I'm not a savvy federal government employee with years of experience, but in a very short amount of time, I have seen some inefficiencies, believe it or not, within the federal government. And so if you're
Imagine.
not getting it, I will use that as an opportunity, if you'll send it to me, to make sure that you get added to that data set. Because by no means is there an opportunity where some may not get it. I would say I would count on it, just from what I know with my time with the federal government over the last 9 months.
Okay, so we can just send an email to you. We're going to have your email address in the chat, and be sure that there is a contact address for your friends group if you are concerned that there may not be.
That would be great. I think that's the best path forward in how I can ensure that everybody gets it that should be getting it.
Okay. Will there be an opportunity for friends and the public to respond to the findings or recommendations from the surveys?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what that would look like. Certainly, again, our director, when he asked for me to give consideration to come and do this job, my first question to him was, what are the priorities? And his priorities were to strengthen relationships with states, NGOs, and tribes. That was number one. And you are part of that NGO, that non-governmental organization. And so I can't imagine that there isn't going to be an opportunity. I just don't know what it's going to look like. Ultimately, there will be some decisions that are going to need to be made, and the director will be making those decisions, and we will stand by those decisions that are made. But as far as an opportunity where there's input prior to and releasing of some sort of draft, I don't know that that's real, and I don't want to overpromise something or get out in front of my skis. I think if there are some issues that we have some concern with that we may need more input on, that I can commit that we will go back to the groups that we think can be instrumental in providing us the necessary feedback that we need to be able to get us to a decision point. That I absolutely can commit to.
Okay, this isn't a question, but it is so good to hear from you that an intent is not to identify refuges that would be possibly sold. The rumor is viral. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this confirmation. Would the formation of a refuge-specific foundation be useful?
I would be interested in having more conversation on that topic. Whoever has asked that question or those that are interested, I think that's probably another topic. So yes, absolutely. We see the benefit that our sister agency or sister bureau with the National Park Service, the National Park Foundation does an incredible job for the Park Service. Absolutely incredible. It is the gold standard of support for that bureau. And if there is an opportunity to look at the forming of a refuge foundation similar to how the National Park Foundation operates, we know it's a tool in the toolbox that we do not have. And so I would very much be interested in that conversation.
Okay, Ken, that's got your name on it, so and we know who you are. Okay, in areas where there are rural refuges with no staff, would U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service be looking into regards to an already strained budget and management, allowing the state to help manage refuge lands to help still be able to achieve the mission of the refuge and reduce the strain on the system as a whole.
Yeah, I think we recognize that, we, much like the friends groups, provide a force multiplier and help with our capacity restraints. That there is a role that the states and other entities of state government could assist, whether that's law enforcement, or shared resources through good neighbor authorities. I mean, there certainly is a tremendous need and opportunity for us to discover and put more of those into play.
Will the staffing be maintained in a manner that will serve the demands of the proper stewardship of this refuge in light of its historic and ongoing contributions to wildlife conservation, protection of critical habitats, its tremendous public popularity, and economic impact?
Boy, that is a huge question. There is a lot there, but I appreciate it. I guess, the what I take away, or what I think I heard, is, are we going to be able to retain and have the staff to deliver the mission of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the program that the refuge system provides? And the answer is yes. I mean, that's what we're looking to be able to make sure that we're doing. And we know that there is a tremendous amount of restraint right now on us and our program. We had several folks that departed from the service in 2025. Our numbers are significantly different than where they were a year ago, and so we are looking to be able to analyze where our deficiencies. And this would be no different than if you were in the private sector with a private business. Where we're at right now is not sustainable for us to deliver the mission, and so we want to be able to understand, how do we deliver the mission better? I mean, we're accountable to our customer.
Okay, this is similar to an earlier question, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Might this review result in the transfer of management of refuges or hatcheries to other entities?
No, that's not the intent. I will tell you, there is one refuge, and I don't know if there's a friends group that is on this call. There is one refuge that I have heard that they would actually like to see it turned over to the state because of the deferred maintenance cost that comes with it and the demands that it must be done through the Historic Preservation Act. This was a refuge that was given to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through the Coast Guard, but it has aging facilities and an aging lighthouse and a huge, exuberant amount of dollars that it would require for us to be able to adhere to because of the Historic Preservation Act. And those folks have said, can you give this to the state, or could there be a transfer? That was alarming to me to hear that exists. I don't know of others that I haven't heard, but this one, I'm going to move that information forward, but that's not the intent. And that was something that was driven by folks that live in that community that have reached out, hoping that maybe we could do right by what they value, that goes 5 generations deep to that community of people that still have lineage to when their great grandfather lived in that lighthouse. So that's not the intent. We're not looking for that.
Okay. How will one access the survey if one does not receive it as an individual? And I'm assuming this won't be individuals, or there will maybe be an individual who receives it, but it will be directed toward the friends group. If you want to fill out a survey as an individual, how can you get a copy to do that?
Yeah, so that is right, Cheryl. That is kind of the battle rhythm of how that's going to work. From what we have in mind, is it will go to the friends group, whoever that point of contact is, and then that point of contact would then be accountable for sharing that to the members that they have within their friends group database or data set. Again, I would ask, just because of the folks that are on this call today that may or may not know if they are included in their database, or maybe there's been a change to the email that they use more currently than what they may have in the past. If I would say if you haven't received this survey by Wednesday of next week, knowing and recognizing that it could potentially go out as early as tomorrow afternoon or Monday, if you haven't received it by Wednesday, I would like you to email me and say you haven't received it so I can get it to you.
Okay. How do we, excuse me, there's a concern that urban refuges will be negatively perceived and affected now.
I guess I would need a little bit more explanation of what that negative perception looks like that's being indicated, because I don't know that to be. We recognize that our urban refuges have a place. It's a great opportunity that allows for folks in urban areas to be introduced to our natural resources and the wonder and awe that is associated with that. It is truly like being a farmer, is the way I see it in my eyes, just me personally. You plant a seed, you have to water it. I mean, there's a long process before you're actually harvesting something that is on your dinner table. And conservation and bringing new people to the fold is very similar. So I mean, there's great value with our urban refuge system.
Okay. Um, how do we execute a fundraising agreement that is required for fundraising that exceeds $25,000? This pertains to 212 Fish and Wildlife 8, donating, fundraising, and solicitation. We're getting into the policies now, I think.
Yeah, that if you could, whoever has asked that question, if you could email me that directly. I don't know what I don't know, and I'm the first to tell you when I don't know something. That is something that's out of my wheelhouse, but I know that I can track down or bird dog the right resource that can help answer that question. I just don't have that answer myself.
Okay. All right. Pete, if you will email Josh, you'll get an answer to your question. The staff at our refuge has been decimated, and they need resources to care for and steward the incredible land in our community. We could easily recruit more volunteers, but we need staff to help them, orient them, teach them, manage them. Will you advocate for more staff for stewardship and research we need to do?
Yeah, that is the aim. That is absolutely the aim, is to help deliver what we know is the responsibility of the purpose that we have with the refuge system. And we recognize there is tremendous amount of shortages at the level that you're speaking with to our field, and that's the first touch to the American public. So again, that's part of the heartbeat of why we're doing this. We got to be able to flesh that out and figure out how to do it better.
Okay, there seems to be an increased occurrence of refuge land exchange discussions, utility easement challenges, refuge drilling, logging, and road creation requests. As you conduct this evaluation, how do you prioritize these energy and private industry demands relative to the intended purpose of refuges?
Well, and I think that speaks to why it's so important for me that I anchor this review to what its purpose in being established as a refuge was, because that has to be the staple that moves our refuge system forward. And there's not a lot of wiggle room with that, and that's why that's got to be the anchor to this entire review, is that each individual refuge must adhere to its original purpose, and that's the meat and potatoes to this.
Okay, this is a request to repeat. I wasn't able to catch how members of the general public will access the external survey and provide comments.
Yeah, we will be relying on the partner groups that we have, the stakeholders that work closely with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Those MOUs of every nonprofit group that we work with and their membership base, it will be facilitated through those groups. If there is a citizen that is not associated with a nonprofit conservation critter group, if you will, or whatever the case may be, then I don't really have an answer to that. I guess I don't know how you get them my email address. I mean, we are looking to have every one of the groups, and there is a ton of groups that have MOUs with us, from Audubon to the Nature Conservancy, folks that would care about wild things and wild places, certainly. But if someone isn't a part of one of those groups, I don't know how we do that. Certainly, we'll have the information available on our website, but again, that takes a little bit of effort on someone else to want to know how to do it, and how do they even know that one exists? I don't know that answer.
Okay. What options are you considering, consolidation and so on, that we can react to?
I don't know the nexus of what you mean by consolidation. We're not looking to consolidate any refuges.
I wonder if they're meaning complexing, which is what has been going on.
Yeah, there's been a large effort of complexing that has happened over, several years now. That's not something that was a direct charge within this review. I don't have any optics on pursuing that or making recommendations on that. We have certainly asked our regional refuge chiefs to look at what is within their purview of responsibility. But I have yet to hear anybody mention we need to do more complexing. I just haven't. I've had more
Okay.
interest of folks that have wanted to visit about how we share resources with other regions, and those could be assets, that could be heavy equipment from excavators to skid steers, to staff, especially within our maintenance department. But I haven't heard anything that gives me the indication that we're looking to do more complexing. Nothing.
Okay. We love our refuge, but we also love the refuge system. How is this survey capturing the needs and the importance of the system, staffing, training, tech support, resources, and so on?
Yeah, I think everything under the sun that was just mentioned are things that we are looking, and I'm glad to hear training was brought forth, because we certainly have, as many of there's a significant number of folks that are no longer with the service, and that created, if you will, a vacuum of institutional knowledge and people that have devoted a lifetime, more than just a career. And I don't believe we have anybody within the service that has ever made a career or a job out of the service. The people I have met that work for the service, it has truly been the passion of what they choose to do professionally. They don't think of it as a job or a career. It's part of their life. And with that being said, we have a lot of folks that training has got to be a priority. We need top performers. We need the best of the best, and we need to invest in that. We recognize that spreadsheets get managed. People don't want to be managed. They want to be led. We need leaders, and that's a priority for us, to make sure that the right training is available for us to be able to lead. And we owe that to our customer, quite frankly, you.
Okay. Will Fish and Wildlife Service Friends Group policies be reviewed? As Friends groups are pivoting and responding to current budget and staffing conditions, we are finding unique exclusions that limit the ability of Friends groups to help fund operations and positions such as fee collections, and we'd like to see revisions to policy to make it easier for us to help.
I would certainly welcome those conversations as well. Again, I recognize the role that the Friends groups has. It's more important now than it's ever been, and that firsthand. And so, if there's something I can do to assist and carry water to move forward, to help me help you, I guess, is the Jerry Maguire line. I I certainly would love to engage in, if there are limitations or there are things that are limiting your ability to assist, we got to be able to talk about that and figure out what does the solution look like to remove some of the deterrence that's preventing us from being able to do the work that we need to do and the support that we need to have.
Okay, the directive for the review says part of the purpose is to, quote, look for refuges or hatcheries established for a purpose that no longer aligns with the mission, unquote. I think this is the source of a lot of the concern. This makes it sound like refuges established for, quote, the wrong reason, unquote, are somehow in question. Some kind of correction, update to the wording would be reassuring.
Duly noted. Thank you for that. I can tell you that, and I've heard this before. I'm not going to pretend that this is news to me. Uh, I have been very blunt with the director in what is the intent of what you want to, how you want to answer those concerns. And quite frankly, the concerns of where there are, do we have refuges within the system now that maybe its original purpose was specific to migratory birds? And have we had mission creep that has moved where our efforts and our focus for that refuge is no longer focused on the priority of migratory birds? And if those are the cases, let's look at those. And so I think there's a lot of reading between the lines in some of that, but I appreciate the comment, and it's not a comment that falls on deaf ears by any means. It is a comment I have heard from others, and so we're trying to address that the best we can by having opportunities just like this to be able to talk about it and to be able to understand maybe what concerns exist and how we can respond to them. And if more is needed, happy to have more conversations and more details shared.
If we are part of a refuge complex, should the responses be partitioned for each refuge?
I guess I would put that back to who's ever asked the question to see what one's thought would be on what carries more weight or what would be more beneficial. I'm more interested in what's going to have more opportunity to really have impact. That being said, I don't know that an individual is going to carry more weight than a complex. I think the individual refuges within a complex, their needs may vary. And so if there's an individual complex that has needs that maybe don't align with other refuges within that complex, I need to be able to identify what those are at the individual refuge level. So
Okay, so it sounds like the replying for each refuge within a complex would be beneficial, assuming that there are some differences of needs.
yeah, and I think, on the contrary to that, are there refuges that maybe are experiencing shortfalls because they are now tied to a complex? If that's a concern, I need to know that.
Okay. Will part of the review consider land exchanges?
I don't know of any right now. If this is a recommendation or there's some specific details of where that has been an effort that maybe I'm just not aware of or just not have been exposed to. I'm not seeking to find that. I don't know. What I have asked our team is there an ability for us within the service to look at some sort of GPS spatial analysis, some GIS mapping, something that would allow for us to be able to put a score or a rank and grade surrounding habitats to our existing refuge system and each individual refuges so that we can be forward looking to the future to be able to put a tool in the toolbox for those that come after us and after them and beyond them to be able to know.
I appreciate your sincerity. Thank you. What would you be able to do if some of these land swap policies change in the future?
I don't have an answer for that. You know I know the lane I'm in, but if it's above my pay grade, frankly, I don't. I know we're going to be advocates for how important this program is for this bureau, but if it's something that is a change that is made above my pay grade or beyond our bureau, if it's department level or executive level through the executive orders that the commander in chief has the ability to do. I don't know. I just know we can only do what we can, and I know it's an important piece for us that we value how important our refuge system is.
Can you state again the external groups that will be receiving the survey? I caught AFWA, Refuge Friends Groups, and Ducks Unlimited. Who else?
Oh yes, no. The short answer is no. I can't because there are many, and when I say many, I mean there are over 100. I don't. I mean, any group that you can probably think of that has had any association with anything that you've probably seen within your time as a friends group or with anything close to landscape conservation, from any of the critter groups, if you will, from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation to Trout Unlimited to Audubon to the Nature Conservancy to Delta Waterfowl. I mean, all of those groups that have MOUs with the service are going to be getting this.
Okay. Are further reductions in staff one of the actions that will be considered, given how many positions have been lost in the last 15 years?
Yeah, that is not something that is in our ability to control. What we're not, we don't have a lot of meat on the bone. We're not advocating for a reduction of staff.
Okay, do you envision the survey results to be of value in persuading Congress and private groups to better support the refuge system? And if so, how?
Yeah, so as I stated at the very beginning, the the sideboards associated with an external survey are very, very rigid, if you will. I had to choose the questions from a questionnaire bank, if you will, that was already, put in place with no editing. The two most important questions on the entire survey are the two open-ended questions, including the very last question, which reads, if there is anything else that you would like to add, please add. Yes, that question
That's
is
a real
absolutely
open-ended one.
critical. And to answer the question, I truly believe that we have a great opportunity before us to use this review and what comes of this review to leverage the needs that we have to all the powers that be that can provide assistance to us, whether that's externally or even within the folks that work on the various appropriations committees within Congress. You know, we have to be able to showcase our needs. And so the earlier question, and I'm so glad it was brought up, is there a need for a refuge foundation? There most certainly is. When I just see what progress and what has been done with the National Park Foundation to our sister bureau in the National Park Service, there's a lot more that we could really leverage with external partners that we just aren't in a position to be able to do. And when you look at what the Park Foundation has been able to do with some of the corporate sponsorships that they have, we're federal employees. We're just not in a position to be able to operate in the same space, and that's why it is truly a partnership. And that's why we need to have that conversation. That is very exciting for me to even think somebody brought that forth, because just because we've always done it one way doesn't necessarily mean there's not a new way to go about thinking about how we really provide and exploit the right resources and those that want to support our refuge system and the value that it has. I'm convinced that there are many people in this country that don't recognize that this refuge system and what it is and what it affords in its entirety. I don't believe many know. I think I've asked people here, random people on the National Mall, because I now am here and I live in a 383 square foot shelter, that my best serve when I'm not in the office is to be outside in the National Mall. When you talk to people that come from all over this country and you ask them if they have a refuge near where they live, and you ask them, do you know how many refuges we have? I've yet to have anybody come even close to saying 573. It's been the best kept secret for too long. We need to tell its story. we need partners to do that.
We're trying. We're doing our best,
Yes,
but
and I know
we
you
need help.
are. That's why I was so excited when Tom reached out. I was elated to know that there was going to be an opportunity. And I'll be honest, I don't know how many are on here. Tom and Cheryl and Joan had indicated that there was, 300 plus that might be joining. Initially I thought maybe 50. So I was excited to know that people were taking the time out of the day to want to talk about this, because it's what makes me tick right now. So
I had 242 at one point when that was when I checked how many were on. So I think you have good reason to be pleased with the turnout. I certainly am. Are there ways to revitalize the hiring of entry-level employees? The recent retirements and other losses of staff have created big gaps. We have a need, and there are many young grads and interns ready to work.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know specifics that I can point to on that, other than the notion of recognizing where we have our biggest need, where we are lacking capacity to be able to meet that need. And that field level need is a huge priority for us. We have internally been looking at what our organization looks like. And if there is some adjustment and opportunity for us to be able to do things differently that meet that need and that priority first and foremost, then we are equipped to be able to do the change that we need to do to make sure that we're making what we know to be the priority for the American public, the priority that we put in action.
Okay. Will existing cooperative agreements between U.S. Fish and Wildlife and its partners be scrutinized and/or revised as part of this review?
No,
I,
not as
as,
part of this review. No, nothing. I don't have anything that indicates anything like that. Nothing.
okay. Are any fish and wildlife refuges being managed by states, counties, or NGOs while Trump is at the White House?
No, these are assets of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and no, I don't know. I don't know where that question's coming from. I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. Is there somewhere we can put our emails if we aren't sure if we will get the survey officially? And I think you've already answered that. You've asked that they send their email directly to you. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, please.
so
And
Jo-
be patient with me. But I will. If I get an email, I respond to it. I don't. Do you know what CDO is? It's like OCD, but the letters are in order. When I get an email and if it doesn't get answered, it becomes weight. I carry that weight and it bothers me because it's an accountability that I have, and it means I'm not being accountable. Nobody wants to look in the mirror and be unaccountable. So if you send me an email, I will email you back. It just may not be within 5 minutes or even that day sometimes. So just be patient. But no, if you email me, I will respond.
Okay, and if you look in the chat, those of you who want to email Josh directly, if you look in the chat down, I'm going to say at least halfway down the chat, you'll find a email or excuse me, a post from Joan Patterson with Josh's email address, Joshua_Coursey at Fish and Wildlife Service, fws.gov. Just it's a typical Fish and Wildlife address for those of you who are familiar with that. Okay, how is this different from all the previous processes to find out efficiencies? Most of the items being suggested have been implemented in order to survive as a functional unit up to this point.
Yeah, I'm not tethering myself to anything that's been done before. I have been made aware of some other efforts that I have looked at to look at different ideas, different findings, including, quite frankly, a report called the Blue Goose Report that was published in October of 1996. That if you didn't know it was published in 1996, the biggest needs of that report in its executive summary was funding and capacity. It also talked about supervisor ratios, trying to get to a grade supervisor ratio of 1 to 15. I mean, things that just, to think that here was something, 30 years ago and very similar conversations, some of this it just continues year after year after year. And so I'm trying not to tether the way that we're approaching this to anything that's been done before, because I just don't want to get in that same rut. I want to be able to provide something that has, fresh set of eyes looking at this, that wasn't coming from someone who's been with the federal government for 30 years or 25 years. I'm coming to this report with the optics that I'm looking at how do I best provide this accountability of this review to best represent the American people and the service and the obligations we have to deliver that mission.
Josh, I want to be respectful of your time and also the time of the people who are on the call. We're at the top of the hour now. There are 60 odd questions still in the chat box.
Yep. Nope. I'm not leaving until we answer all the questions.
Okay, all right. I'll keep going as long as you're willing to keep going. So you can holler stop if you need to.
I already told you. I already shared with you
okay.
my living arrangements.
You're not anxious to get home, is that what you're saying?
My office space is bigger than my 1-bedroom studio apartment, so the leftovers in the fridge are going to be there no matter what time I get there. So,
all right. Well, if you get hungry or get ready to need some sustenance, just holler. Is there a way for retired employees from other programs like migratory birds to provide comments? Many of us are advocates for habitats research and monitoring and management on refuges that benefit migratory birds.
that's a great question. I was told that one of the external groups that we have is a group that is directly tied to an association of retired Fish and Wildlife Service employees. So I don't know what that group is called, but if you're not part of that group, I would email me directly as indicated and let me know that, and I certainly will make sure that the survey gets to you. And then if you could help, get it to others that you might have, just knowledge of a similar situation that they're in and aren't receiving it as well. We really want to get this in front of as many people that have thoughts and care about the refuge system. So.
Okay, I think you already answered this question too. This person would like your phone number, and I believe you said to email you if they wanted a phone number. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I mean, I can give it to you. That's no problem.
Well, if you want to give it to us,
Yeah.
go for it.
No, and again, this is I'm in the Eastern time zone, so if you just be mindful of that. 771 241 7267.
Okay, we've got it now. Just do remember the time zone difference, the time zone difference.
The only reason I was, not that I was hesitant, I don't have anything, there's no boogeyman here. The reason I was hesitant to maybe just start with an email is the email just provides me the accountability of when I can get to it, that I see it, I know who it's from, and I can respond accordingly. It will be very challenging for me to respond to missed phone calls when I don't know who they are. The email is certainly the preferred method of communications, but if you don't email, and I recognize there are folks that's just not their jam, and I'm fine with that. Be mindful of the fact that if you call me and I don't answer, that you leave a message, and when I get the message and I get the opportunity to call you back, I will. But please, if I don't answer, make sure you leave a message, because if I just see it's a missed call, it's a little more challenging to just call back and say, hey, I see I had a missed call from you. I don't know what this was.
Okay. There's a suggestion. Can you use email using the NWRA email list, which is the list that goes out to all of these, well, the people that are on this call for the most part have responded because of a message from the NWRA email list.
Yes, NWRA is certainly, as many of you know, is certainly a partner to the Fish and Wildlife Service. So they will be, in fact, without question, getting the external survey. In fact, I would imagine they're at the top of the list.
And I don't know whether Desiree's still on or not, but would it be possible for Eden to send that out to the email list that NWRA has? Not sure she's still on the call, but we have inroads into NWRA. Several of us are on their board as well, so we
Oh,
can
great.
probably
Okay.
make that happen if you would like it to. Okay, how can refuge folks reconcile the administration's disregard for dealing with climate change that will affect refuge habitats by stopping clean energy development in the US?
Yeah, that's not something that is in my wheelhouse. To me, I would think that, just speaking as an American citizen, I think that's probably a lane that is pursued through your congressional representation. Um, that's not something that I'm looking for, or even have the ability to have influence on within this review.
The desire to have the ability to respond to the draft report after it is completed, not necessarily before the draft is completed, similar to a public comment opportunity when regulations are being proposed. I think we're asking if that is going to be a possibility.
So if there were to be regulations that would be proposed, absolutely there would be the opportunity for public comment. But I don't know of any regulations that are at this point that will be proposed. I don't.
Okay, I'm seeing lots of interest in the foundation. Ken, I hope you're taking down the names of the people that have responded and are interested in helping with that idea. Um, Sorry, I'm scrolling down through some introductory. Is there a way to ask for management transfer of a refuge to go to the state? If so, what would that process look like?
Yeah, I do not know, to be direct, but as I indicated earlier, I do know of the folks that have brought forth the idea that there is a refuge that they would prefer with this community, and it had broad support from city council to county commissioners. I think they even had indicated that they could provide support from their governor. That this was a refuge that they would prefer see turned over to the state for all the reasons I laid out. That this was a refuge that was given to us by the Coast Guard with an enormous deferred maintenance backlog because of the Historic Preservation Act and the facilities, including a lighthouse. It's a small refuge, 3.4 acres. It has less than 1,000 visitors a year. Um, so I think we want to dig into that and see, does it better serve the community that is asking for this, for us to have that conversation? And if there are other examples, I certainly need to hear of them, because I don't know of them, and I don't have a resource other than asking our regional directors and our regional refuge chiefs if within their region. But I have asked that question, and only one has come to light, and it's the one I've just talked about briefly. But if there are others, I think that information probably needs to work its way through the channel so that I can hear and see what that is, and then do some bird dogging on that from there.
Okay, here's a response to the person who was interested in the fundraising agreement. Comes, I believe, from one of the regional Friends coordinators. I know they're meeting here at Tualatin River right now, and they were planning to listen in on this call. So it may have come from one of them, but they suggest that you contact your regional Friends coordinator to help you with the fundraising agreement. Um, yeah, another question on urban refuges. I'm worried that urban refuges will be perceived as DEI, a concept that is anathema to this administration.
Yeah, I don't have that perception. I can tell you that.
Okay. Are you looking for input from state and local NGOs and government collaborators to respond to the survey? For example, our refuge works closely with our state DNR and county conservation district. Can we share the survey with them?
Yeah, so AFWA, which is you know, AFWA is the mothership, if you will, to many regional associations, to include NEAFWA, CAFWA, WAFWA, MAFWA. That is the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. So AFWA and its membership entails of all 50 state directors across the country, of all 50 states and their wildlife management director. So AFWA, uh, having all 50 states covered by all 50 state directors, we will be utilizing and soliciting this survey through those reaches. But beyond that, there will be some duplication because, as I mentioned, there are regional associations like WAFWA, which is the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and WAFWA is comprised of 16 Western states, and it just allows them to be able to function and operate with more shared issues that are regionally or geographically similar. So WAFWA will be getting the survey, but AFWA, which has all 50 states, will be getting it. So the states are going to be they're going to be dinged a couple of times to know that this survey is out there and their participation is being solicited, and we're asking for them to provide meaningful and substantive feedback. So yeah, I think we're going to have the states covered pretty well.
Okay. This may be a difficult question for you to answer politically. Are you
Sure.
hearing any things at your bureaucratic level at this time that give you concern for the continued management and existence of refuges?
No, that wasn't difficult. I'm not.
Okay. That was an easy answer. How is this assessment different from the previous efforts responding to the changing budget and physical environments?
I don't know that they're even similar, to be quite frank.
Okay. How can we ensure that resources, whether shared or not, are equitably distributed? It seems that resource distribution has become more political than ever.
Specific to the refuge system, certainly the only way we could look at doing shared resources is to make sure that it is equitable for the needs that we have. So, as I mentioned, and maybe that's what's alluding or being the precursor to this question is if we were to look at potentially opportunities, for example, within Region 6 and Region 3, if there was, because of geographic proximity to where those regional boundaries were, if there were shared resources and more emphasis put to be able to consolidate instead of having this self sufficiency within each individual refuge, but maybe because of loss of staffing, the inability to maybe fill some of that in. If we were to look at a model that would allow for us to have a responsibility of shared resources out of one location that would encompass covering multiple outlying locations, I think the only way it could work is if it's equitable. And so those are some thoughts that have been presented as ideas that have come through the refuge system and people in their experience that have been a part of the refuge system and are in the latter part of their career that have been tasked with trying to identify ways to be more efficient. And so again, I not to indicate that that is ready to be put into motion, but those are the type of ideas that have come forth in soliciting feedback from the valued resources that we have that are still currently with the service. So
Okay. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service rescinded its refuge system strategic growth policy. Our friends groups are great advocates of the Land and Water Conservation Fund to Congress. Will the survey allow us to respond to the administration's actions on limiting refuges growth?
So at the end of the survey, the final question is, please add anything that may have not addressed your concerns regarding the refuge system. And I would encourage you to utilize that open-ended question to tell me anything and everything you want to say regarding anything refuge system related.
Okay, just to confirm, there was another question about, is it okay for us to share the survey? And this person wants to know if they can put it on social media and other platforms. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I am looking to have this survey be shared with as many that can share it. So there's no limitations to who can participate in the survey. We're just limited to who we can send it to, just
Okay.
because the protocol is a little different.
All right. So anyone that you want to send it to is okay. Will this survey have any impact on removing the hiring freeze?
No.
Okay, please define complexing. I think I'm the one who brought up that word. Do you want to give a definition, Josh, or?
Yeah, I mean, there has been efforts that have, and these have been going for some time, but we have refuges where in close proximity to each other, they become part of a complex. For example, over the Christmas holiday, because again, I was here and I wanted to leave and go outside, I went south and drove across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge for the first time, and we went up the eastern shore. The refuges that make up that landscape within the eastern shore, they are complexed into a system of refuges that work and operate and function managerially under a complex that just allows us to be a little bit more efficient. And so we have seen multiple pools of refuges that are complex together like that for the purposes that it provides benefit to us and being able to manage them. So
Okay, would you please address the rumor that if a refuge does not have employees, that when we do get a budget, that those refuges will not receive funding? Is this true?
that is not true. I'm gonna put on a different hat and just tell you, when I hear things like that with my two daughters who are both grown and adults, but when they say, "Dad, we heard this," my response to them is fake news. That's fake news. There's no truth to that.
Okay. Some refuges were established many years ago, since the refuge system is now 122 years old. A few things have changed since 1903. How can this process accommodate changes, including expansion of scope of work, changes in the environment, endangered, recovered species, and so on, while we anchor ourselves to 1903?
Yeah, so I guess to be clear at the beginning of that, we're not anchoring ourselves to 1903. Each refuge, when it has come on board as a refuge, it is stated its intent and its purpose, and that is what it is held to in accountability to law for its moving forward in its existence to its purpose. So not all refuges were founded, obviously, in 1903. I think the more important part of what I heard in that question is, how are we looking to the future? How are we being forward thinking for not only our time and our ability to be on the timeline of history right now, but to think that conservation is it's like planting a seed under a shade tree that you'll never have the opportunity to reap the benefit of its shade. It's got to be beyond our living years, and our refuge system and the conservation of what we put forth through this incredible system has got to be mindful to what's around the next bend, or what lies ahead of us. And so I think some of those ideas are benefits that can be had by us being able to continue to talk about not the present, but the future. And as I indicated, just the one idea that I've been given a lot of thought to as I just noodle on what does it look like to see what exists in a model that really looks at continental conservation and how the refuge system, while we have so many individual refuges, what is the bigger impact that they have as an entire system, and the connection of each of them, how they benefit and depend on each other. But then what are the other landscapes that also, especially when you look at migration corridors and you look at the movement of wildlife, and everything from big game ungulates to birds, what are some of those other properties that exist, whether they're federally owned or if they're state owned, and how we put forth measures and can talk about efforts that complement those landscapes, knowing that they're not individual. They may be individual, but their shared
Oh,
value is
it's
of
not
equal
time yet.
importance.
It's not time. Go down and see what Scott's doing.
Debbie, can you mute yourself, please? Would love to see training become a priority. Field staff currently being told training is not an option because staff are spread too thin. So sounds like a comment that needs to go in somebody's survey.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
How can you make the system more effective and efficient without considering complexing or decomplexing refuges? This seems like it would be a major area to explore.
Yeah, I think the flip side to that is the concern of if complexing pools resources, does it set us on a pattern that also has some unintended consequences, because we geographically start lumping things together, but then aren't in a position to really look at the individual needs that each refuge has to its original purpose. And we live in a day and age where aquatic invasives and other invasive plants. We really need to also let each individual refuge have its own priority. And so I know there is some concern that complexing potentially could erode some of those individual efforts that are needing to be prioritized. And so I think it just needs more discussion, and we really need to evaluate and talk about what may seem like a good idea. Are we mindful of potentially the unintended consequences that could also be maybe not known at the time, but present their ugly head in the near future afterwards?
Thank you. Management needs change with time to adapt to new circumstances, new science, and emerging issues. Will there be less flexibility in the future if these are not in the original mission?
No, no, I don't think so. I think we have to, we are only as good as the information we have. We have to foster an environment that, is anchored to the idea that, what we don't know doesn't mean that, we know all. We have to encourage, and we live in a pretty special time right now where, information and technology is, while I find some of it to be very intimidating and some of it gives me great concern, I think there's also the recognition that the sharing of information, the way we collect data, the way we're able to solicit even a call like this today from people all over the country to be able to talk about this very important issue. We have to be able to, and as I stated right from the beginning, and I was very appreciative of Tom's wording to say citizen-led conservation. Nobody knows your backyard like you do, and we have to. There is a place, I do believe wholeheartedly, there is a place for citizen science and the people that interact with our natural resources and have for generations. Um, that's a very important place. We always have to be able to incorporate and look to the future.
At a time when U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's resources are so constrained, I really appreciate your comment about needing leaders. Are there any plans to meaningfully address poor performers, such as merit versus time served evaluations, to incentivize top performers and address those who aren't contributing effectively?
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like. Um, I don't really know, Cheryl, how to answer that. What I do,
Okay.
I can only state that, you know, Fish and Wildlife Service, it's a very special group of people, but we're probably not immune to any other organization that's, 7,000 strong or, we need top performers. And I would like to think that the system provides an opportunity for those that are doing their job and doing it well and being accountable, that there's room for those folks to continue and to grow and to be a part of what we deliver and the service that we provide. And those that don't, um, I don't know how to speak to that.
Okay. Who will develop the metrics for scoring and ranking habitats?
That I don't know. That is an idea that I have been talking about with just a few people on understanding what our tools that we have available to us look like, and if we don't, being willing to acknowledge that and know that we have external groups that do have that type of GPS spatial analysis and GIS mapping skill sets at the competence and the greatness of what is needed to look at something like that that is so big. Um, what I do know is the folks that we do have are certainly, I don't know anyone that works within the service that doesn't have enough to do on their plate. And so when I have some of these harebrained ideas that adds a tremendous amount of workload to someone else, I'm a little hesitant as I'm mindful of what they have. So I've been delicate in just trying to understand what our capacity is to think about some of these, and if it's even a potential opportunity within what our resources are, and if not, to be able to look externally to see where we can gather that assistance.
Okay. Might this review result in certain regulations related to enforcement of activities such as use of fireworks, damaging vegetation, dogs that disturb wildlife or habitat, and so on some refuges be removed?
Not not that I'm aware of, but certainly the activities that were just mentioned as part of the question. I would think that what's already in place is limiting. I don't know the specific example, I guess. So I would be very interested if this individual would like to email me directly and share with me their concerns. It sounds like it might be an isolated incident. If it's larger than that, then I certainly would want to know that. Yeah,
I think you can count on hearing more about that.
okay, that would be great. I would welcome that. And
Okay.
what I don't know, I certainly don't know, but I certainly have the means and the ability to get the person who can know. I can get this question in front of the right person to be able to address that. The
Okay.
first part of that question, though, is we're not looking for more regulation. I can tell you that. That's not, we're not trying to over regulate anything. If there are situations that need to be looked at because of abuse or degradation to the landscape, that's probably a different conversation.
Okay. Do the relevant congressional committees know about the survey?
Yes, yes. In fact,
Oh,
I have a meeting tomorrow with Senator Heinrich's
all
team.
right.
Yes.
Okay. Perhaps it might be helpful for you to periodically, perhaps once a quarter, participate in additional friends-based Zooms like this one so that we can monitor and comment on the evolution of the responses to your survey and follow-ups. Is that something you'd be open to?
Oh, I'd be very open to it. As much as you would want it, I'm sure listening to me can get pretty exhausting in itself. But Tom, I am at your mercy, sir. Whatever this group of constituents would like, I recognize again how valuable the folks on this call are. So, yes, it's my job. I'm here to serve. So
Well, and it certainly would be helpful to us as well. So I think we can make that happen.
great.
Um, can you, Mr. Coursey and Fish and Wildlife Service, post the 100 plus groups who have MOUs in addition to friends groups on the NWRA site? I don't know what NWRA site for sure they're talking about, but
So I'm assuming they're referencing the National Wildlife Refuge Association's website, and I can communicate with Desiree to see. I just don't know what that looks like, and what there's always a layer of bureaucracy and privacy, and I
Josh,
just don't know.
I'm not sure either, but I'm happy to talk with you and try to figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Okay, great.
okay. Um, who will be reading the responses from the survey? Will the responses be made open to the public or will they remain confidential?
Yeah, those are coming directly to me. I do have some folks that are helping with this effort just because of the data compiling, but I can assure you, I'm going to see every comment.
Will the Partners for Fish and Wildlife programs be evaluated in the regions where the partners fall within refuges? And I'm not sure I understand that question,
Yeah,
but
so it's the dichotomy of that is a little just different because we have some regions where the partners program falls under ES and some that are ecological services and some within refuges, and it's an extremely valuable program. So the partners program as a whole, we recognize the role and the value that it has. So absolutely.
okay. What is the due date for the external review again?
So when it does go out, again, either tomorrow or Monday, it'll have a 2 week time frame on it. But I imagine even if it went out tomorrow, which would be the 16th, that puts it at the 30th. I'm comfortable recognizing the legs that this is going to need under it, that is going to be shared by others. That I'm comfortable indicating to the folks that are going to help in sending that out that let's give it as much time as we can, but yet still be mindful of a deadline. And so maybe February 6th, which is a Friday, I think that might be the date that. In fact, I'll send that tonight before I leave. That I would like to make that gives us a little more than 2 weeks.
Okay. That's helpful too, because a lot of friends groups only meet once a month, or they need to arrange time to get together and talk about what they want included from their group as well as from individuals. So thank you for that leniency.
Yes.
Are you saying that a refuge established in the olden days to support migratory birds, but now recognizes the importance of climate change, invasive species, habitat acquisition, and so on, is, quote, mission creep, unquote, and should be scaled back?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm wanting to ensure is that whatever the original purpose for that mission, for that refuge to be established, that priority is still being held as a priority. Those other changes that have been indicated there, that doesn't mean that they don't have a place. But we do need to recognize that we have to anchor our review and this entire system as a system to what we are accountable to by law, and that is its purpose. And so that is, I'm anchoring this review to that as That doesn't mean there aren't other priorities, but that is the initial priority that it will be anchored to.
And this is a follow-up on that. And using this example, the scientific follow-through in other agencies, bird banding database of the USGS ecosystem mission areas are also critical to mission alignment of many refuges in many areas of USGS research. Fish and Wildlife Service is a part of an integrated team, and removal of a partner on that team degrades every other functionality. The
Cheryl, I
fish
don't
and
know, was there a question there?
there
Or
wasn't really a question. I think it was a clarification more than anything else
okay.
that Fish and Wildlife is the Fish and Wildlife Service is a part of an integrated um, process with other organizations, and
Absolutely.
removing them from that process would damage the work that's being done.
Yeah.
The address for Fish and Wildlife Retirees Association is in the chat box if anyone wanted that. Um, don't forget that NIFWIF was created to help refuges and Fish and Wildlife Service. Um, that's a long discussion with lots of comments that I think we probably don't need to get into today. This is just a comment. The staff reductions were problematic, but the hiring freeze is almost worse. Because of the government shutdowns, numerous remaining staff are looking for other positions outside of the federal government. There's a real potential for additional staff losses.
I concur.
Will the survey be sent to the Fish and Wildlife Service Retirees Association?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And we're back on the foundation again. Ken Kupchak is the person, he's a board member on Corfa board, and he says he's looking forward to working with those interested in working to explore foundation issues. So he's the person, he's he's going to take it on the nose for that one. So get a hold of Ken Kupchak if that's something that you're interested in helping with, and he is on the call. Ken, do you want to give him your email address?
Just
Or
a
how do you
moment
want him to
here.
get a hold of you?
Hold on.
Okay.
I have started the regional Zoom while this is going on.
Oh, sorry.
You can contact me at KRK. I better, how do I mute this thing here? KRK at hawaiilawyer.com. And
Okay.
we are hopeful of putting together a committee that explores the foundation aspects of it. There's pros, cons. There are existing foundations. Some of them are helped out by having Congress support them. Others do it on their own. And all those things need to be explored. So if you or someone from your refuge is interested in participating in that exploration, please let me know and I'll try to get it together so we can all Zoom and talk story. Is that
Okay,
what you were
thanks,
looking
Ken.
for?
That's what, yeah, I just wanted them to know who to get a hold of if they were interested in helping. We don't want to lose those folks.
Yep, KRK at hawaiilawyer.com. Kellogg's
Thank
Rice
you.
Krispies.
And Ken, if I could be able to just listen to the conversation, or if there's questions, I'll make myself completely available to you to be able to participate and engage in whatever way or in whatever you see fit. Just know I think this is a wonderful idea.
Well, you've given it the impetus I think we needed. We've talked about it over the last year and a half. None of us had the expertise right off the bat, and so we're trying to get together to the point where we understand the system and how it works. There are lots of sensitive people that need to be to discuss this with. NIFWIF is one of those. They have a role to play. We don't want to damage that role, but there are things that are specific to refuge, like the National Park Service, and we've been very impressed with how they've proceeded with their work, as you've mentioned. So I will have to spend some time, or we'll have spent some time talking story with them a little bit. We don't want to get into someone else's lane, but there are, as you indicated, a lot of people who love refuges that might want to support this particular type of thing. And we don't want to turn away anybody that wants to contribute.
Yeah, and I think that would be where we see the opportunity where something like this could be absolutely a huge benefit for the refuge system is something that is truly focused on assisting the refuge system from the conservation habitat level, not wanting to be in the advocacy lane, wanting to truly be rooted and tied to the resources of the refuge system and its conservation benefit and what it provides. It doesn't get involved in politics. It just has a very clear mission. It stays out of the advocacy lanes that certainly create some exposure and some turbulence. Depending on who's in the White House, we need a group that can just stay middle of the road and just keep their focus on where their focus is. And I think the other groups that support the refuge system, they have their lane that is very much needed, and we need them to be in their lane. But this is a lane that we clearly have been able to identify. We don't have that partner that can do this. So I think it'd be a great conversation.
Well, Josh, I really appreciate your willingness to kokua, that's Hawaiian, for work with us on it. And it's something near and dear to my heart. And I know that a lot of people would like to figure out how we can best do this in conjunction with everybody else.
Great. Very
Thanks,
much look
Ken.
forward to it. Thank you.
Okay.
And everyone, also, we've gone down this road a little bit, so definitely I will give you a call and can talk about this.
Thanks, Desiree. Are there plans considering ways to minimize adverse impact due to potential future government shutdowns?
I don't know of any plans. Certainly, we looked at the most recent shutdown that was historic in nature, 43 days on, what were the things that, like any organization or business would look at, what are things that we learned from it? What are the challenges that we weren't anticipating? What came out of left field? Where were our shortfalls? I think, as leaders of this organization, we owe it to our staff. We owe it to the service that we provide. So we've looked to try to always position ourselves to learn from the experiences that we have, but to speak beyond what that is moving forward, I think we certainly knew that we had challenges and we tried to offset them with the resources we had, but we've identified things that we would do differently moving forward, and I think that's probably just human nature to want to just be better than what you may have been. So.
Okay. Do you want to hear from us about why refuges, especially urban refuges, need on-site staffing?
Yeah, I would include those in your comments. Absolutely. Absolutely.
With all due respect, the Refuge Association is reporting the review is focusing on whether the missions of refuges and hatcheries still match the overall mission of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I have seen other articles stating it this way as well. This is confusing when you are saying the review is of each refuge aligning with its own mission. It also states key area of focus is staffing levels. I believe you said the review would not have any impact on the hiring freeze.
Yeah, we're again, I've covered this, but I'll offer a little more clarity to make sure that there's no confusion. We are looking at this review, and I understand some of the things that have been put out there to the press. We're not taking press interviews. That's just not what this. It's just not how it works. And so I understand where there can be some confusion there, but that's why it was very important. You're partners to what we do here. I felt an obligation to visit with you directly to maybe provide some clarity that would clear some of that up. And that's no fault to anybody else that may have said something a little different. I just wanted you to hear it from the horse's mouth here directly. That is not the intent of this review. It is not a sale of federal properties or lands. We're not leveraging this with the hiring freeze. We are truly looking at the system and the very many multitude of pieces within the system. How do we meet the mission of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with each individual refuge and its purpose that is anchored in law? How do we do that in a way that serves the mission of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and its benefit to our customer, the American people? And we recognize that we have a shortage of funding. We recognize that we have a shortage of staff. And so it is an opportunity for us to circle the wagons, if you will, and say, hey, we got to do things a little different, and let's do it. If those things aren't going to change, let's figure out how we can put forth the best product we can to serve our customer, the American people, in the most efficient manner possible. And if that does result in some moving around of staff, if that does result in a different way of how we've done things historically, they are all going to be anchored in being able to be as efficient and nimble and flexible to serve the American public to the best of our ability. That is all this review is intended to do, is put forth a better product to the American people.
Thank you for clarifying that again.
Yes, absolutely.
How will refuges that lose fire staff make up for lost collateral duties?
That was a decision that the Department of Interior consolidated all of the Bureau's department fire assets into one wildland fire service. That's above my pay grade. Those folks have a plan. I'm sure they put a lot of thought into it, have the skill set to actually, get to pen to paper and determine how they're going to execute. Certainly we recognize the role that fire has with our controlled burns and habitat treatments within the service. And certainly we have folks that are going to continue to want to be able to talk about those needs because it is such a tool for us. So I anticipate and I have the confidence that the folks that made that decision are aware of what those resources and their allocations historically look like, and that we'll continue to be able to execute and meet those goals. I don't have any reason to think otherwise at this point.
And we are, I think, approaching the end, so we're almost there, Josh.
Okay, well, no, hey, I just want to be very clear, Cheryl. I will stay on as long as there is a question.
Okay.
It is truly that big of a priority for me that we have this talk.
Well, I keep trying to give you an out if you need it. So
no, I'm not.
We deeply appreciate how much time you're committing to this. So
I'm not looking for an out.
Okay. How will the existing CCPs be included in this effort?
I'm so glad that this question came up because this is a real issue for us, and it should be. I've heard as high as 68% of our CCPs are out of compliance. This is something that is a regulatory mechanism that is mandated, and we are out of compliance. And how do you hold yourself to doing your job and knowing that part of your job and the requirement of the job isn't being done? And I have asked and I've had this conversation with several regional directors and refuge regional chiefs about the mandate that requires these and the time frame that is associated with them. And the need for staffing and funding are clearly always presented as not being able to meet the requirements and just being spread too thin and the time frame that goes into them. And so I can tell you that we're aware of it, and we're trying to think and have conversations that will result in us being able to recognize the role that these CCPs have for not only the current management of our refuges, but the future management as well. So more to come on that, but we're very aware of this.
So I may have missed questions along the way, and if so, I apologize for doing that. I tried to catch everyone, and we repeated several times some of the ones that were uppermost in folks' minds. Are there any questions that you want to ask from the floor? We're dwindling in numbers now. We're down to only 94, which is still a pretty good number, I'd say. So if you would like to ask a question and you didn't want to put it in the chat, um, I know your name is not Sharon. Okay, I see a hand up, but it's not Sharon Scott. Who is
Yeah, Mike Scott. I've
Mike?
got a question. Given the uh, lack of commitment or diminished commitment to endangered species by the administration, will the refuge system maintain its commitment to endangered species? Because there are about 75 or so National Wildlife Refuges that are focused on endangered species specifically.
Yeah, to answer your question, sir, our ecological services department, as you know, they have a heavy load, a huge lift of what their priorities are in regards to endangered species. And certainly if there is overlap where that impacts management or needs or requires management within refuge system lands, um, that's not going to change.
Okay, and I can't see your hands if you don't use the raise your hand um,
Cheryl, the
capability.
one thing I do want to make sure before we do, and maybe it'll give folks an opportunity if there's some more questions that are still being inputted in the chat group. I do have something I did want to share before we called this to a close
Okay,
is over the next 6 weeks primarily, I'm going to have an incredible opportunity to be able to go to several refuges. Many of these refuges maybe will have friends groups that have representation on tonight's call. And I would like to know if the opportunity presents itself. I will have, and I'll share the travel here in just a moment. But if there are opportunities to visit with you directly, any of you, I'd be happy to. Certainly during the day or work time hours, I'm going to these refuges to visit with staff, to be able to see these landscapes, to understand challenges, to be able to see some of the maintenance needs, et cetera. But in the evening, I will be in a hotel, or I'm an early riser. It's just who I am. I start my day very early. I'd be happy to meet prior to the workday hours at 8 o'clock or beyond, but be happy to meet for coffee, or in the evening, be happy to meet. I just want to make myself readily available because I don't know how many of these opportunities where I can get to various places like I'm going to have ahead of me in the next 6 weeks will be in the future. But I certainly would welcome that opportunity. It'll start next week. I'll be at Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge in Georgia and Florida, I guess. The following week, at the end of the week, I will be at the West Tennessee Complex. First week of February, I'm going to be in Region 5, which is the Northeast. February 9th through the 13th, I'm going to be in Region 1, which is the Pacific Northwest,
yay!
although I do think that they are trying to get me to the islands and some of the serious needs that they have regarding stuff within the islands. The third week of February, I will be in Region 2, which will be a lot of Texas and New Mexico. And then the second week of March, I'm scheduled to be in Region 7, which of course is Alaska.
Oh,
So if there's opportunity, if folks are interested in that, I certainly would. I'm not going to be able to be in the entire regions. They're going to be very pinpointed to refuges that I'll be seeing. But I just put that out as an invitation. If it does create an opportunity where our trails could cross and we could visit in person, I'd be happy to.
that would be great. Let us know if you have some spare time in Region 1. We would love to meet with you. I see some hands up. Paul, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, Josh. We really appreciate your time in
Yes.
answering all of these questions um, candidly. My question is with regard to the Freedom 250 initiative and the Flags Across America, will friends groups be invited to participate in those events?
Yes. Yes, and so as you know, and it sounds like you're on top of things with this, Paul, because it originally was A250, and then there was a recent shift to Freedom 250. But our schedule of what those events were for Flags Across America, that has not changed. The only change is instead of them hoisting a flag that said A250 and had the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service logo on it, there's been some branding changes that are beyond my recognition of where the pivot came from. But I have a boss too, and those are the marching orders, and we're executing them. So, but it has not changed anything with Flags Across America. In fact, we were asking, do we need to get a Freedom 250 flag? Because we have been also hoisting the Old Glory flag with the 13 stars, and they said just move forward with that. You don't need to take on any more expense. So that's what I know about that.
And friends groups will be invited?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mary Beth.
Hello, Josh. The refuge that you were speaking to with the historic buildings, that one is mine.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear on this. So we're part of the Green Bay National Wildlife Refuge, and it was formed in 1912 for migratory birds. And they acquired other islands, but there's nothing in there about historic buildings.
So I'm sorry, Mary Beth, did you say you're in Maine?
No, I'm in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's
Friends
what I
of
thought.
Plum
At
Pilot
first, I
Island.
thought you said Maine, and I thought, oh, maybe we're talking about a different one.
No, Wisconsin. Yes.
Okay.
So the anchor purpose doesn't say anything about historic buildings. So, but you guys are aware of some of our challenges. How will that be addressed?
So I think, and from what I've heard, specific to that, and you're certainly I just want to make sure we're talking about the same one. The refuge you're talking about. What is it by name? Is it
Pilot
Plum
Island.
Island?
Plum. Okay, I'm with Friends of Plum and Pilot Island. The one that you're referencing, that you had some fifth generation keepers, that one is Pilot Island, the 3¼ acre. Plum Island is similar, but it's 350 acres. And that one is open to the public, but we have the same kinds of concerns. There is no money for historic preservation. So the Friends group has been raising all of the funds, upwards of $500,000. But that's not in the anchor of the purpose.
Yeah, so I'm curious, Mary Beth, because it is the only refuge in this entire process so far that I have actually had folks asking that the community supports having this refuge maybe be turned over to the state. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I was, just to catch you up to speed, the conversation I had last Thursday was an ask for me to be provided information that I was told included a city council, a county, and potentially even a letter from the governor's office that indicated this strong support of this. And I haven't seen that yet, but I was told it was forthcoming. And so that's a totally different scenario. We're not looking for that, but if this is uncovered in this process, we certainly want to know, because if it makes sense and the community is asking for this, we certainly don't want to be in the way of that. We are all about trying to strengthen our relationship with the states, the tribes, and the NGO community in the role that we have as a federal government entity. So if this is community driven, by all means, we want to have this conversation.
And maybe you and I can have another conversation on that.
Yes,
I sent you a couple of emails on it.
Okay, great. Yes, please do. And I'm making a note right now because I have a pretty good packet of information that's been shared with me. So
yes, this group, Save Pilot Island, has been active for a couple of years, trying to understand the refuge system, and we've had a lot of turnover in our management. So they get so far, and we have a turnover, and they have to start over. So this is, it's been an ongoing request. And I can give you more of the background on it when we have our conversation.
Okay.
Thanks,
I
Mary
appreciate that,
Beth.
Mary Beth. And those that are still on the call, please do not think or take away from this that this is, yep, I read the headlines. They're trying to get rid of refuges. We are not.
It's coming from the community. Okay, Sue, you have your hand
Yeah,
up?
yes, thanks, Cheryl. Quick question. I'm sure Tom will be interested in this too. I didn't hear you mention that you're planning a visit to Region 3, which had a whole lot of people on this call. And we sure would like to see you. And our refuge is just just up the road from Tom's refuge. So we love to have you visit and take you out to dinner or meet you at a bar or whatever it takes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just for situational awareness, Region 3 and Region 8 are on the docket, but I don't have dates locked in. But I've had to indicate to both those regions that it would be in May, and it would be probably within the first 2 weeks of May. I just haven't been able to lock in the dates for scheduling because of some other commitments that I may have that just aren't locked in yet. So the dates that I gave on what I'm doing in the next 6 weeks, those travel arrangements are locked in, and scheduling has already begun travel arrangements for me. So 3 and 8 it will be coming, but it won't be until May.
Oh, that's even better because it will be beautiful weather probably, and the mosquitoes probably won't have hatched yet. So that's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah,
Probably.
why we're talking about that, though, I will share with you the recommendation that was given to me for Region 3, just so we're on the same page. But it included Neil Smith, Boyer Chute, and DeSoto National Wildlife Refuges. And it also included the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge and Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge.
Ah,
That's what Cedar Point also, I guess. That's what Region 3 had indicated to me. They were trying to plan for a pending itinerary for May. So.
Cool. Well, unfortunately, that's not us. But if you get stuck at Minneapolis St. Paul Regional Airport, we'll meet you there.
Okay, what refuge are you associated with?
Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge Complex, 50 miles northwest of downtown Minneapolis.
Well, I can tell you, I don't have any direct contact there, but I've had a lot of prayers for your city here of late.
Yeah, well, I'm
yeah.
glad we're not that I no longer work down there.
Josh, you'll have a great time in May at Ottawa Refuge
Oh, yes.
and Detroit River. And the migratory bird songbirds going through Ottawa Refuge is just spectacular.
Ah, wonderful.
That's a really special time to be on the coast of Lake Erie. And Detroit River Refuge is it's a real flagship, new place.
Right.
Great honor of John Dingell, one of the most influential conservation congressmen we've had, and his wife Debbie now serves. So yeah, those are two great places, and DeSoto and Neil Smith Refuge, fascinating. You can't go wrong in Region 3 anywhere.
Yeah.
It's
Come up to our refuge in mid-October and see the sandhill crane migration, which Tom has seen. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, one last question. One last hand still up. Carissa, are you still with us? Do
Yes, I am.
you want to ask your question?
Yes, sorry. I would have my camera on, but my computer doesn't want to work with me today. So thank you so much for providing the time, by the way, to answer all these questions and to be on for, I think we're going on 2 hours possibly. So thank you for that. I, for one, would appreciate to be able to meet with you. We're out here in Cibola, Arizona at the Cibola National Wildlife Refuge. I believe we're Region 2. My question is, it pains for me to ask this. We've seen the Department of, I believe, Education get absorbed recently by this current administration. And I know some of the changes with the Fish and Wildlife System has been the loss of the Fish and Wildlife Service regarding the fire and everything with the fire people and everything. And I've heard rumor of possibly losing the Fish and Wildlife Service law enforcement to possibly Bureau of Land Management. With the current employees that we've been losing, the buyouts, the rumors of rifts, things like that, do you feel that it's just a matter of time before the Fish and Wildlife Service becomes as part of the Department of Education and is on the chopping block as well?
No, I don't. And let me just speak briefly on what you mentioned with the Office of Law Enforcement or Refuge Law Enforcement. I have not heard anything that would indicate that we would be losing those to another bureau or that. Nothing of the sort. Nothing. That is that is such an important component of what we offer, what we serve to the American public that provides for law and order. I know this administration has actually been very supportive of law enforcement. There's nothing at all that I have heard that would even indicate that, and I would tell you if there was something otherwise. The law enforcement community is very near and dear to my heart. My father was killed 10 days after he was elected sheriff in Colorado, and that law enforcement community, it is truly the thin blue line that allows us to do what we do with our military as well. And so I can tell you, if there was something like that, I would know about it, and that's not accurate.
I appreciate you for clarifying that and clearing that up, and I'm sorry about the loss to your father.
Yeah.
I for one, at some point in time, would be able to like to have conversation with you, because our refuge right now has no employees and we're part of a complex. So anybody that does come up here is having to drive an hour and a half just to set foot on the ground to be able to help. And I know things are really strained with everything that happened with the current administration. I know with the temporary folks and the people, the first round of people that I guess you would say got laid off when the current administration took office, we're at least probably 50 to, would you say 60% understaffed in the complex? Yeah, at least. And so our area is definitely suffering, I know, along with a lot of the other people across the nation. So it'd be great to be able to speak with you in more depth at a different time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I would
Carissa.
welcome that opportunity. I have heard of some similar staff shortages that are certainly recognizing the tie to local communities that many of our refuges have, and how it's truly ingrained to being part of that community. And those shortages are creating a lot of discourse and concern. I recognize that. That's part of why we're doing this, is to identify how do we offset and overcome some of those challenges. How do we communicate that message? How do we, that's why this call was so important for me.
Well, it was important for us also. And
Yeah,
thank you
look at the
again,
role
Josh,
that
so
the
much.
friends groups play. You truly are force multipliers. And how do we strengthen that? How do we build that relationship to do more? How do we help you? Yeah, I recognize great value in this call tonight.
Great. And I think we all are going away with a more optimistic feeling than we've had for a while. So thank you so much for your openness and your generosity of time. It's been amazing. I don't know whether you have any closing comments, but I'll turn it back over to Tom and you to finish out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess the only closing comment I would have is that I certainly recognize this fast and furious schedule that I'll have with some of these refuge visits that, I wanted to prioritize getting to at least each region. But in the future, there will be opportunities where I'll be at other potential refuges. I'm here for 158 more weeks, and then I am going home. But in that time that I'm here, when those opportunities present themselves, I will be mindful of what our friends groups list looks like and those that are in close proximity to where I might be. And I will always make sure to prioritize shooting an email to whoever that point of contact is. And if the opportunity presents for us to connect, I would welcome that. And I would actually love the opportunity to do that. So,
is it possible to ask a question? Hello?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Josh, I thank you so much for all the time you spent. Thank you for leaving your home in Wyoming for the studio apartment in DC. And it sounds like you're not quite homeless, but you're almost there. Next time we're in DC, my son lives in DC. I'll make sure he gets you over for a home cooked meal sometime. But I do want to just share one for those who are still on the line. We were saddened last weekend to learn about the death of Bronnie Strasser Woodall. She was a retired park ranger at Pea Island and a force of nature, a big supporter of friends groups and volunteer program. And Bonnie and I went to law enforcement together, and just a terrific lady. And boy, we're going to miss her spunk and optimism. So sad news there. But on the brighter side, today, Dartha Campbell received the Employee of the Year award from the Refuge Association down at Okefenokee. Dartha has been an anchor at Okefenokee for over almost 50 years now. And she was there when I started working at Okefenokee. I think she's the one that handed me the papers that I had to swear to and sign up on. And what a gem she is. And so thank you, Refuge Association, for honoring her. And Josh, you're heading there next week, so make sure you dress warmly if they take you out on the airboat. It may be Southeast Georgia, but when you're on the airboat, it just feels bitter cold.
Yeah.
The next Friends webinar is going to be an informational program on marine monuments and the role that the refuge system has in their management. And the dates and times will be announced before too long, but that should be really interesting. That's a unique part of the refuge system now, a large part of the system, and they operate under some different rules. And frankly, I'm interested in learning about that. And then our friends share calls, these Zoom calls that we have that are kind of informal face-to-face discussions on different friends issues are going to be starting up again January 27th. Keep a watch out and an announcement on all of those. For those of you that are interested, there's always kind of fun. We get to know each other a little bit better and kind of commiserate on issues and problems that we all have as NGOs, always trying to share ideas and techniques. Josh, thank you so much.
Is it possible to answer a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is Gary Kirsch. I'm on the International Wildlife Refuge Alliance, which is part of the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone, and that's why I kept trying to get in, so I apologize I wasn't able to raise my hand. But I want to thank everybody that organized this. And Josh, this has been so uplifting. And it's just amazing to listen to you and your willingness to answer questions, your openness, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in May. So thank you so much for your time. This has just been unbelievable.
Great. No, I look forward to that as well. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Josh.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.